Seabass is with us now. My friend is out of physical therapy today. We are doing this Wednesday afternoon, so this will probably air on Friday. So anything that has happened in basketball, we are not ignoring that. It just hasn't happened as we are doing this. But my friend, appreciate you joining us today. How are you?
Well, we play SEMO tonight, and you know me, I like to prognosticate, and it usually comes 100% true. If you'd like to know, I can tell you the final score and who did what for tonight's game.
Might as well. I mean, that's as good as the game being played.
All right. Well, the final score tonight is going to be 79-61 Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt's going to be led in scoring by Saban Lee's 19 points.
I'm going to go too high. I'm going to go more like, 71-54.
So we're almost in the, and what I say, 79-61, something like that. Yeah, I think that's what I said. So we're not that far off, yeah.
Yeah, I just think this team is going to be more defensive oriented. I think they're going to be a little offensively challenged at times, and particularly to start the season. I mean, it'll be interesting. If I'm wrong, and SEMO's not a very good team, so it'll be interesting to see how well this take ages. I mean, if they're up at the upper 70s or around 80, I think you have to feel better about. I say that it's SEMO. They're picked near the bottom of the OVC, so who knows? I think this is a team that's going to struggle to really find a lot of outside shooters. I don't see them having an established post score, and when those two things are the case, you're going to have some issues. But I think they'll play hard. I think they'll grind, and I think that'll make up for a few deficiencies.
Few more for you tonight. Scottie Pippen Jr., 11 points, and how about this? Leading the way with 8 assists tonight. Saban Lee with 19. Dylan Dessou with 10. He hits and one more player will get double figures, and that is going to be, it's coming to me right now, Ola Salima. Believe it or not, it's going to be Max Evans. He's also going to have 10 points because he's going to hit 2 baseline three-pointers, 2 free throws, and 1 two-point bucket. And he'll be the 4th Commodore in double figures. The high water mark, 19 is Saban Lee. 19, 11, 10, and 10. A final score. The Doors knock off SEMO 79-61, getting the first win for Coach Jerry Stackhouse in his collegiate career and as the head coach of Vanderbilt.
Evans' threes were coming from the baseline, so that's an interesting way to put it because I think that's where he's shooting them all. Neesmith does not get double digits, according to you.
Neesmith has 9 points. Doesn't take a ton of shots. It's more of a team effort. Now, he ends up being the leading scorer on the year, and in the very next game, which I'm trying to remember who we play in the second game, he ends up scoring 22 and leading. But tonight, he only gets 9.
I think second game is Austin P. Let me check that.
I was thinking that was the 4th game.
Oh, you might be right. I think you are.
I was thinking there's 2 games in between this one and the game with the P.
Yeah, Austin P's like the 20th. I don't have my head on right today.
Seems like there's a road game against a pretty decent team, the 3rd game, and I can't because I don't have the schedule in front of me. I'm literally sitting in a K. Roger parking lot right now.
I don't think they hit the road until Thanksgiving-ish. I'm going to pull up the schedule. There's a way to make this easy. I can just pull up the schedule and we can talk through it. There's a game. I think it's Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I'm looking at a calendar. It's just got nicknames. You're right. Richmond is the 14th. There is a road trip. I thought that was later.
Nobody wants to listen to me. I'm trying to tell everybody.
Yeah,
they play the Spiders a week from tomorrow.
I should just let you do this. I think that's going to be one of their tougher out-of-conference games because Richmond, when I look at that team on paper, it's got some good returning players. It's experienced. You know how that Matt Freege team had not been anything those first 3 years, but that you have some seniors and a lot of returning minutes, and sometimes it just clicks. Richmond might be that kind of team this year.
Well, that'd be great. Early season test, kind of tell us where we are maybe, which I can't even begin to proffer an expectation for this basketball team. I mean, I know what I hope for, but a true expectation, I don't know. And, I saw somebody asking, and I don't know if it was, I know he wanted you to do it. I don't know if you want to do it because I know we had done that, but I'm sure on some podcast about wanting to break down the minutes from personnel like we've done over the past couple of years. The only thing that I would tell you is that I would have a very difficult time doing that preseason with this basketball team because we simply just don't know it. We don't know this team yet.
maybe our audience thinks it'd be fun to hear a spitball through this. And I mean, this is the last chance I'll get to do this because the season hasn't started as we do this.
I
So
mean, we can do it if you want, but I'm going to tell you it's going to be much more of a solo affair because I'm not familiar with this team yet.
yeah, well, I mean, I have gut feelings, but they're not. I'm not gonna say they're not anchored in anything. I did talk to him, talked to him a good couple hours about the team already, and I've seen him in an exhibition game, and I've seen him in a scrimmage. So,
Well, let me ask you this, because from time to time I'll become the interviewer. What have your thoughts been in your interactions in the press conference and whatnot? He's very different to me. His approach, way he talks, just kind of, it's not mad, it's not glad, it's not sad, it's just even keeled pretty much at least all the time. Now I know he'll certainly get after him, when the ball is bouncing, but when you interact with him, asking questions, and he's doing the conference, I've never really seen an approach, at least out of a Vanderbilt cat, like that.
I really like the guy.
Me too.
He has been very easy to deal with. Now, he does not have a lot of media availability. They do not open a lot of things, and that part I wish were different. But like when you're there with him, he answers your questions intelligently. He's nice. He doesn't, I say this, he's not coached the game yet. And so what happens if they lose 8 in a row? Does he get a little cranky? Who knows? But so far, he is very even-keeled, very easy to deal with, and you don't feel like with some coaches like you're on edge with questions. You have a lot of respect for him, but I feel pretty comfortable in talking to him. So far, so good.
I watched a little bit of an interview the other day, and there was a couple of different media outlets there, and you asked him a question, and I couldn't quite make out his response. But so I'm going to ask you if this is what he said. And you asked in regards to, and I don't remember who it was, in regards to injury. Did he say he doesn't talk about injury?
He did say that, yes.
Okay. I thought, but it was kind of muffled just a little bit. But I thought that's what I heard say. That's not something that he's going to be addressing with the media while he's there. Or if that was a one-time thing, or it's just not something that he does.
Yeah. I mean, and fine. I can respect that.
Oh, yeah. Totally get it. Totally get it. But I agree. I like his approach. Now, I know you only have the exhibition game. What did you notice about his on-court demeanor? Did he just kind of let the game? Was he pretty intense about his approach right there as a head coach? What did you notice out of that? Because I know you were at the exhibition game, and it ended up being a 40-point win. But what did you notice about his demeanor? Not the kids' play, but just him.
And part of me, because I said this on another podcast, but I watched him. He's very even-keeled. I think he gets their respect. I think he has their respect and sort of a healthy fear that he doesn't have to scream at them to get. And so when stuff happens where it doesn't go like he wants it to, he doesn't go nuts. I think he keeps it in perspective. Now, again, we will see what happens as the year progresses and you lose and the stress piles up, but he is a really chill guy. I think he has expectations. I think the kids understand that, but I don't think he needs to go all Kevin Stallings on them for them to get the message.
Sure, and I completely understand that. I wonder if part of that built-in respect is the fact that, Chris, it's Jerry Stackhouse. And that just kind of comes with it. Because he hadn't coached the first regular season game yet, but I think that you're right. I think there is a built-in respect because at the end of the day, and I know, he's been out of the league for a little bit, the name Jerry Stackhouse is still resonating with 19 and 20-year-olds for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. This whole thing is a wild card, man. This, maybe not this season as much, but just his career. I don't know how you could have any sense of where it's going to go, but there are not, well, the recruiting is the one thing that is the biggest concern at this point. I don't know that they're going to get anybody else in the early period. I think there's been an adjustment period there with them a little bit. And I'm not saying that they can't. I don't know. But I think that's going to be where his biggest learning curve is how that goes and how that goes maybe more importantly at Vanderbilt, if you get my drift.
Yeah, and look, it was never going to be the same situation as Penny Hardaway. And when people even mention them too, come on. I mean, there's nothing other than the fact that they both played, and they both had AAU ties. It ends right there. The institutions are different. The city connection is completely different. Everything about the city of Memphis is in love with the entire 901 is in love with Tiger basketball. Vanderbilt has to beg for fans. Didn't used to, but now it does. So I think the dynamic is completely different, and it's unrealistic to expect him to be able to pull players like James Wiseman, and Precious, and all these other guys. And even though Penny was able to do that the minute he walked in the door, the obvious advantages for Penny were there that Stack is just going to have to find a way to navigate. I think. I don't think it's anything similar at all.
Oh no, it's not.
I think you can make a living out of the 150 range. Getting two or three of the cats in the 150 range that are going to be there for 3 years. What I'm seeing is, it's great to have those big time recruits, and you always want to get them, and it's wonderful, But I'm in it for the 150s that are there for 2 or 3 years. I think that's the way to go for us. I don't think we can live in that neighborhood. We tried to last year. It blew up in our face. Doesn't mean it would blow up again if we tried it again. I just don't think that's who we are, and I don't think it's necessary.
I'm going to look back a little bit because this is interesting. Somebody dropped this on our board. Peyton Willis had a big night for Minnesota in the opener. And I guess when you look back, sometimes you sort of overlook things. And this did lodge in my mind at the time, but they were clearly running off guys to try to make room for E.J. Montgomery or whoever else they thought that they might have a chance to sign. And I mean, on one hand, I guess you're doing a guy a courtesy to say, hey, I don't think you're going to play here. You might want to look elsewhere. On the other hand, that kind of offends most people's sensibilities. And that old staff, they didn't have any use for Willis or Toy or a lot of those guys. And Willis is a kid that, boy, not only could they have used last year, they could really use now. They just discarded guys. They came in and treated that current roster like it was just garbage. And, these guys aren't any good. We can't do much with them. We better move on to other players. And, man, Willis's box score line the other night, don't have it from me, was very good. That's a kid that on this team is, let's say, probably their second best player.
Yeah, and we didn't have that type of clout to come in with that approach, to be real honest with you. We didn't have that type of insurance, and we're paying the price for it now, but we can't undo that. So we are where we are. I'd like to have him. Yes, that's great, but he's not there, and he's not coming back. So it's all about what we've got right now. The question is, Chris, what do we have right now? And I don't think on November the 6th anybody truly knows.
How about we do the minutes thing? Like you said, I have set up a sheet where I can add the minutes, and we got to equal 200.
This is going to mainly be you. Like I said, I haven't seen some of these cats yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's cool. Aaron Nesmith, give me a minute forecast for him, and then I'll tell you mine.
Strictly minutes is what we're doing right here?
Yeah.
Man, he's going to be so important to this basketball team. Golly, Bill. He's the one guy that I think Saban's going to do fine. I mean, he had his moments last year. Aaron is a fantastic scorer and intense basketball player. I love this kid. I would love to have him around for 2 or 3 more years, but there's a decent chance this is his last year. But I think he's going to be, I don't think we have to worry about him defensively. He can certainly score. He's going to be so important to this basketball team that I don't think that he can get more than I think he plays about 16 minutes a quarter, a half, excuse me. So I'm going to say 32 minutes.
32 is exactly what I had.
Really? You know what that says, don't you? This is where you say, what does it say? And then that's when I say that you clearly know what you're talking about. Hello.
The stupid mute button. Sorry. I will give you
that mute button.
I will help you out here a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, maybe it helps. It probably helps a little bit, but an exhibition game where it's a blowout, some of the bottom end of the roster gets more time than at the expense of the top end. But I will give you minutes. Let's see. Nesmith played 27-14 the other night. I'm thinking number 2 in minutes probably going to be Saban Lee. He played 22:07 the other night. What say you?
I think second in minutes will be Saban Lee. Okay, let's break it down into half. Saban Lee plays 14 minutes, half, 14 and a half minutes. I'm going to say 29 minutes.
I'm not lying. That is exactly what I had.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, one of us or both of us is getting pretty good at this.
I guess so. Maybe we should predict the season while we're at it. But anyway.
Yeah. I already told you what's happening tonight.
That's right. You did. They don't even need to go to the game. Of course, they won't know it. They won't hear it till after the game. So I guess that's...
Oh, but you and I will know. And if that's what happens, you best be calling me after that game.
The DeLorean's doing some pretty good work tonight.
Yeah, and we'll take that trip straight to Vegas, my friend. Who's next?
Well, we know Scottie Pippen will start at point guard, so let's take a guess at that.
This one's a little tougher because, yes, he's going to start at point guard, but he is also a freshman. You know, how many minutes am I going to put on the shoulders of my true freshman point guard? But I'm kind of in here. Am I using saving at 1:27?
Okay, I had 25.
Okay, so we're still living in the same neighborhood.
I guess we'll go with Max Evans next since we know he's sort of starting. So give me a guess there.
Max Evans, it will start, but I don't think he's – and, one thing about it, though, before I answer this is Coach Stack really seemed to kind of glow about him, especially when we're talking about on the defensive side of things. So maybe he gets a little bit more minutes than I would expect because of the defensive side of things. So I'm going to say 22 minutes, Chris.
Okay, I'm going 15.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about this one.
Keep in mind, we're going to have to go back and see how this adds up to 200.
Sure.
And then we can make adjustments. May end up having to bump him up just because, this is not look, they're not deep with experienced players. So, okay, so far you've got 110 minutes. I've got 101 accounted for between those four guys. By the way, Evans played 19 minutes and 8 seconds in the exhibition game. I'm going to go Cleveland Brown next because we know he is their starting post or is supposed to be. So what do you say for that one?
That's another one of those where, boy, Cleveland could mean so much to this team with his length and athleticism. I don't know that there's a post player that logs more than 20 minutes a game. I'm going to put him just south of that 20, and I'm going to say 19. I'm going 19. Now, you know what? I'm going to drop it down a little bit, Chris. I'm going to go with 18 for Cleveland.
I'm going the other direction because the state of things in the post is not a pretty picture. So
no, it's not.
And by the way, I've got walk-ons as a player. So they did play several walk-ons the other night. That's one thing Bryce Drew never did. I'm not going to allot minutes for every walk-on, but you can say, hey, I think their walk-ons will average 2 minutes a night or whatever. That'll be a category 2, though not a big one.
All right. So save something for that. I got you.
I think Matt Moyer could end up playing a decent role in this team. He played 26 minutes and 45 seconds the other night, so let's have a guess from you.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case in the regular season. Boy, the athleticism is certainly there, but the inconsistency has been there too. And you're really waiting for that young man to put it all together. The type that made Matt, wasn't Matt like a top 50 recruit, if I remember correctly, coming out of high school?
Yeah, by at least rivals he was.
The potential is certainly there. It hasn't lived up. But, this guy, I will say something about Matt. You can tell he's trying. And really, this means a lot to him and that he really wants to take his game to the next level. So I don't think it's going to be for lack of work. I just think he still hasn't put it all together. I'm going to put him under Cleveland just a little bit, but not much. I'm going to say 16.
I'm going to go 25.
Really?
Yeah,
For Matt Moyer?
Yeah, well, wait. No, you know what? This is not – I'm going to have too many minutes. I've still got to get to Dessou. I'm going to knock him down to 23. I'm at 150 and you're at 144. The big difference has been Cleveland Brown. Well, and here's what is sort of guiding what I'm thinking. Obina the other night played 8 minutes and 25 seconds and he fouled out. Yeah, and that is what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, that kind of bothers me, especially off of a redshirt season. You can say, well, he wasn't playing, but yes. I mean, he wasn't just sitting in his room playing PlayStation all day either. I mean, fouling out in 8 minutes in an exhibition game is, I mean, where's the control there?
Well, and let's do that one next because he's the next guy, and I think he's the biggest wild card on the roster. I've got a number in mind, but I'll see what you say first.
I think the minutes are clearly lower than the other two that we've mentioned. Yeah, because he's what, Chris? He's a sophomore, right? He's a redshirt sophomore, right?
Correct. He's third year on campus.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not fixing to say that. Well, he hadn't done it yet, so he simply can't. But in basketball, it doesn't take that long. You kind of know what you have pretty early on, and they generally don't turn in from a type of guy that needs a red shirt to being a stud. That generally doesn't happen. But I'm hopeful that light comes on. I think it may take a little while. I'm going to say 6 minutes a half, and I might even be pushing it, but it's probably out of necessity. So I'm going to go with 12 for Abena.
I said 13, and again, I think that they want to play him. I think he'll have one of those nights where he may play 25 minutes and score. You saw it at Mississippi State when he was a freshman, right? He had that one blow-up game. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. That they like him. They've been impressed by him. So I think it may have just been a bad night, but that's kind of hedging between what they think and what I've seen. So, okay, we are at. I'm sorry, I'm at 163. Oh, I didn't put. How many did you say for Abena? 12? Okay, yeah. You're at 156. I'm at 163.
Okay.
So we have got Dessou, Jankovic, Wright, and the walk-ons left. So Dessou is going to be the guy among the group that gets more playing time than the rest. I'm really confident. In fact, he could get more playing time than the guys we've talked about. So let's get your guess there.
All right. See, here's where I was saying, here's where I catch up with you, maybe even pass you. I don't know. Obviously, Coach Stackhouse likes Dylan. There's no doubt about it. But what I like is, and I know he hasn't done it yet, but the length is there, and he's a solid shooter as well. That's a big thing in college basketball. If we can find some length that can shoot the basketball as well, I think that keeps him on the court longer than some of the others. So I think that Dylan logged some very meaningful minutes this year, and I think it may even go up as the season progresses to the point where you might see him on the court a whole lot to the tune. And I'm going to say that Dylan, watch this. You ready? I'm going to surprise you, Chris, because it may not start that way, but I think by the end of the season, things change. I'm going to go with 16 for Dylan Dessou.
I'm going 25.
Well, forget what I said. Chris basically has him as a starter at this point. He's on the court for almost 13 minutes a half. I mean, that's starter minutes just about.
Well, I mean, to me, he looks like he's their third or fourth best player right now.
Okay.
Here's the issue I've got. I've got 12 minutes left, and you've got 28. We got to get to Jordan Wright, who played 17 minutes and change the other night. We've got to get to Jankovic, I think it's Jankovic, Otan Jankovic, who played 23-47. I just didn't see enough out of him. And again, let's remember, too, that Cleavon Brown didn't play. So you're seeing some guys get some elevated minutes in the post. I think he would be the beneficiary of Brown being out the other night. So I've got Jankovic, Wright, and the walk-ons are going to have to split 12 minutes between the rest, or I'm going to have to reassign some. So anyway, let's go with
and how many minutes do I have left?
You've got 28 left.
Good Lord.
Now, that doesn't mean that you can't reassign some of these if you want to, but I hope the listeners like this. It's kind of fun to walk through this because they can hear how we think through it.
Right. And, of course, I'll freely admit with some players that I haven't seen yet. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Can I make one small adjustment? That's all. That's the only adjustment I'm going to make
of course.
Now. I'm going to creep Dylan up from when I say 16 to 21.
Okay.
I'm going to bring him up to 21. I can live because I like him too. And like I said, I think as the season progresses, those minutes go up. I think that's where I'm a little deficient right there. I'm going to take Dylan and put him up from 16 to 21.
Okay. Now we got to go to Ochan Jankovic, Wright, and the walk-ons. I'm just going to go ahead and give the walk-ons a minute and make that easy. What are you going to give those guys? Probably one makes sense.
I don't anticipate us being in a situation where we can play them because we got things wrapped up.
Yeah.
A whole heck of a lot. But just for levity's sake, give them 2 minutes.
Yeah, actually, I am too, because over the course of the season, that's 30-something games. That's only, you play 2 minutes, that's 60-something minutes for the walk-on. They'll probably get that somewhere. So now I got 10 minutes between Jankovic and Wright, and I think they're going to play more than that. So I've got to take some away from somebody. I'm going to take a minute back from Brown and a couple minutes back from Moyer. So now I got 13 to work with. And I'm going to give Jankovic. Oh boy. I'm going to take a minute back from Brown too. Just because big men get in foul trouble.
Yeah, they do.
I'm going to take a minute from Evans too. Okay, I'm going to go Jankovic with 8 and Wright with 7. And that gets me to 200.
All right, where am I right now?
You were at 179 between Jankovic and Wright, but you can also bump some other guys up.
You know what? I'm going to factor in foul trouble for some other guys, defensive matchups, fatigue for a little bit. So even though I know, or I say I know, I don't know that those cats are not going to log 10 minutes. I'm going to go with 11 and 10. Jankovic, 11-10 for Wright. That's way too high, probably by about 3 or 4 minutes on each one, but I'm going to ride with that.
Yeah, I don't know that you're wrong. Wright, he told me that kid could play anything but the 5. He did get 17 minutes the other night. I mean, honestly, he didn't show me a lot. He was 1 of 6 from the field, had 4 boards, 3 fouls, and didn't really give them anything else in terms of assists or steals. Or Wright to me is I don't know how that one's going to resolve. But here's what we got: Neesmith, 32. Both of us had him at 32. We got Lee. Both of us had him 29. Pippen on average at 26. You had 27. I had 25. Followed by Dessou. I had 25. You had 21. That's an average of 23. Brown, I had 24. You had 18. That's an average of 21. Next was Evans. You had 22. I had 14. That's 18. Obin, I had 13. You had 12. That's 12 and a half. Jankovic, I had 8. You had 11. That's 9 and a half. Wright, I had 7. You had 10. That's 8 and a half. And then the walk-ons get 2.
I like it. It sounds phenomenal before the basketball bounces. And we don't know what's going to happen, but I like where we are.
I may hear this on Thursday just to get a little closer to the game. Hey, let's go to the mailbag because I've got to get you out of here in a minute, and I've got to get headed towards Memorial Gym. So
we didn't even talk about the football team.
Yeah, well, that's coming. Okay.
I got some.
Today's mailbag sponsored by Vanderbilt fan Josh Minton, an independent insurance agent operating out of Brentwood. Looking for a one-stop shop to take care of your insurance needs, Josh has you covered. Call him 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Twitter at JoshuaMintonHQ or at Facebook.com/JDMintonHQ. He's my insurance agent. Give him a try. Tell him you heard about it here. I'm going to start with one from Dusty Orleans. You have hope after the Florida game. What happened and what time frame are you hopefully for? Same for reverse. You lost hope. What happened and for what time frame?
I'm sorry. I don't really understand the question.
I'm trying to understand it too. Let's hit the easy part. If you have no more hope for the football program after the Florida game, I think that's what he's asking. What will have happened in that game? And if the reverse is true, like you come out with more hope, what will have happened in that game?
The only thing that I will say is that was a tough loss for Florida. They're pretty much out of, I would say, as far as the East goes. And I wonder how they respond to that the very next week against a team that they're clearly supposed to beat. Defensively, I've seen some improvements clearly over the last 2 weeks from a point totals. I saw some regressions last week against South Carolina that kind of reminded me of what we saw beforehand before the Missouri game. But what would have to happen, man? Chris, I'll be honest, I don't know that it can. What would have to happen? This team would have to be competitive going into the fourth quarter. Play like you did against Missouri, and I don't have to have the win in Gainesville, but just the same approach on both sides of the football. And I get it, Mo's son's not playing the game, and I certainly understand that. But good Lord, coaching staff, you were driving me and everybody else crazy. Look, I get it from the quarterback side of things, but if that's the version of putting our best foot forward, then what are we even really talking about? Balls to the wall, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But Coach Mason, you don't have anything to lose at this point. Jerry Godowski, you have nothing to lose. All out. Get your screen game going. Whatever it takes to get it done, get it done. Jordan said something the other night, I think in the podcast, that I was a little surprised by. Said they had been working this. I think that was Jordan that said that they'd been working the screen game over and over. I haven't seen that. I've been watching other football, I suppose, because I haven't seen that. And I know they busted the big one off against Missouri, but I haven't seen this team using the screen abundantly. Have you?
No, they haven't. And Bruno Reagan made a great point in the column he writes for us. He said the play to Vaughn that scored against Missouri was the first time they've run that kind of screen all year. They didn't go back to it at all.
So let's not run it one. Don't tell me about a formation. I want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. It's your best opportunity. Your players in space. Those are NFL caliber players in space. And I am tired of hearing about the inability to get the ball to 80. Are you out of your mind? Are you kidding me? That should be the easiest completion of all. Outside of a hitch into the flat, the targets alone are mind-boggling. I don't know Jared Pinkney from a man in the moon. I've never met him. Watched him play every game at Vanderbilt since he's been here. But every time that camera pans on his face, I don't know if you got a chance to see that. It spoke 1,000 words as an utterly frustrated guy. I'm sitting there thinking about it. This is a guy that I'm telling you right now, and I can see it right now. Outside of, look, Keyshawn Vaughn's going to be great no matter where he goes, no matter what he does. What you're going to see next year is you're going to see, he may end up going high in the draft because people know the potential. But people are going to be saying, man, where was this Jared Pinkney dude? Where did he come from? Where's this Elijah Lipscomb guy come from? What'd he do? These are guys that we somehow cannot figure out how to get the football in the hands of. I don't want to hear another excuse. It's ridiculous. You make it happen. You make it happen. You force it to happen because the alternative sucks. It's terrible. It's inexcusable. And I know we're not supposed to question anything you say or do as a staff. Sorry. The results leave us in a situation where we don't have a choice. We got to question because we're watching very poor planning as far as we can tell. Yes, the Missouri game was fun. And it worked out well, and you had a good game plan. But when it's one of every 6 games, what? And you expect us to just sit back and say, well, go Doors. Not this guy. Not me. I'm not going to do it. I'm always going to be behind that team and love them till the day that I die. But I'm not going to sit back and say, well, I'm not going to quit that. No. Leave it all on the floor or on the field. If you get out there and Florida kicks you know what, because they're just that much better than you, but you left it all out there. And I'm not talking about the players. I'm talking about from a game plan. And it's not enough. Well, then, Chris, it's just not enough. We will live with that. What we won't live with is watching the ineptitude that we keep seeing on Saturdays. Can't live with that. Not going to apologize for it. No more. I'm tired of watching. As much as I utterly just cannot stand, and you don't have to say it, Chris, I'll say it. I loathe UT. Cannot stand them like most of the Vanderbilt fans listening to this podcast. But if you think they're not starting to turn a corner right now, then you're not watching them. I don't want to go through that again. We need to be right there with them. We've had our chances. We've been winning these games, and that's great. But that is not going to continue with this approach. It just won't. It can't. They finally got somebody that's actually got them believing that they can win some football games. And I'm telling you right now, if they took the field today, I'd take UT by 2 touchdowns at least right now, if that's our approach. Love you, coach. Get it together.
You have given me a lot of things to respond to. One, I'm just going to ask you, have you ever heard a network crew go off on a coaching staff the way that the SEC network did the entire second half of that game?
I haven't, but there's an easy answer for that. There's no danger in it for them.
Yeah. Well,
we don't have a fan base. You can say anything. There's not going to be any backlash to them. There's no fan base.
That's a good
point.
Anything
you want. You think they're going to say that? Like, let's just say for some insane reason that Nick Saban had the same approach to the South Carolina game or some of the other games that we played already in this season, and the execution was like that. They may do a little bit of criticizing here and there, but they're not going to lambaste him. They can't. They can't. They got too much on the line. But there's nothing on the line to insult us. Nothing at all. We have no teeth.
I was watching that game the other night, and look, this is not a prediction on what they are or are not going to do in terms of making a decision about bringing him back or not, because honest to God, I do not know what they are going to do. I've had really good sources that are convinced that they are going to keep him. I have really good sources that are convinced they are going to move on if it keeps going this way. And Malcolm Turner, if we know anything about the guy, he plays his cards very close to the vest. But he looked like a guy, I thought, the way he coached and the way he did his press conference Tuesday, that is the most relaxed and transparent I've seen him in a while. He looks like he feels like he is going to be back next year. And you remember when he has gotten in trouble in the past, it's all these things that we say, hey, where's the motion, or where's using this guy, or where's using that guy. Right now, it's like, no, I've got the way I'm doing things, and you guys are going to pry that away from my cold, dead fingers before I change.
I kind of see the same thing. One could say the way to analyze that it would be somebody that has seen and accepted their fate, but I don't know that that's the case.
I don't think that's the case. I do not think if he leaves, I don't think it will be one of these, we sit down in a room and we agree that it's best to move on. I think he is 1,000% convinced he's the guy for the job, and his way is the right way of doing it. And
trust me when I tell you, I want that to be true. I don't dislike Derek Mason, not at all. I want him to be the guy. I want it to work out. I want his game plan for this program to succeed. How can I lose in that scenario? I can't. Vanderbilt fans can't lose in that scenario. But it's not working. It's not. And I don't want to hear about the recruits. Don't talk to me about that. That's not what's going on here. They didn't lose to South Carolina because of the recruiting. It didn't help, but ain't why they lost. I mean, when you lose to LSU, okay. You lose to Alabama, just got flat out coached in every way, and your players are getting bowled over at the point of attack, and it looks exactly like it did the week before and the week before that. And then all of a sudden, in one fell swoop, you take a team who had a chance to win the East, you go up there, you look them right in the eye, and from kickoff, you punch them in the mouth, and you never stop swinging. Even when your quarterback on the most dirtiest of plays gets knocked out of that football game, and you come in and you throw a pick six and it looks like all is lost, and you still find a way to rally and do it, and then you follow up a bye week, by the way, with that crap last week, how can you expect any different response from your fan base? And understand this, the response that you have received is so tame compared to the other 13 teams in this conference, it's not even measurable.
Did you see the feature we ran, and we run this every week, on starters as recruits? And Sean does a good job with it. He basically just says, here's the 22 starting for Vanderbilt, and here's the 22 starting for whoever, and of course, whoever last week was South Carolina. It was almost dead even. I was really surprised. In terms of
Yeah,
star
that is the
ratings,
best.
yeah. I
Yeah,
did not
that is the
realize
best.
that there was, in terms of the starting 22, I thought there'd be a much greater difference in star rating. There wasn't. There wasn't much at all.
No, then that's the same team that went down to Athens this year. That means something, you know. And yes, Derek Mason has won in Athens too. I like to think of Zach Cunningham won in Athens, but you understand the point. There's just no excuses left, Chris. I don't know how else to put it. There are no more excuses. It's time. We're 6 years in. We're 6 years in. You know, and I understand, and I guess this is a built-in excuse that the university clearly has not done its part. I think Malcolm Turner wants to do something about that. I believe Malcolm Turner is going to do something about that. But some of the stuff that we're having to witness over the last year or so, man, I mean, it's just, you know, I don't want to go back to one game, but I don't know that they've won a game or two here and there, but they have never looked the same since that Alabama game, Chris. They've never been the same.
I don't know.
When have they been at that level of any type of consistency since then?
Well, when were they ever at that level with any type of consistency before then?
I'm not saying the name. You know who it is, and that would be the answer.
Oh, I thought you meant under Mason.
But I'm saying the potential to be at that type of level. You know, Mason has flashed, but he's never been able to sustain. Whatever you want to say about his predecessor, at least he was able to sustain that over a 2-year period. If you'll remember, Chris, I can't remember exactly which 2 years it was, his second and third season, that Ben Franklin, the only team in the SEC, and you can start talking about, well, this team wasn't doing that and this team wasn't doing that. Whatever, man. All I know is that for a 2-year stint, the only team who won more games than him in that 2-year span was Alabama. That was
Oh,
it.
I know. Well, and let me throw something else at you here, and then we've got to take a couple more questions and move on. And people do this with Franklin. Okay, well, they won 9. Well, they didn't beat anybody. Okay, to some extent that's true, but just being able to string together 9 wins at Vanderbilt is incredible. Playing in the SEC,
They
because
did
that
Florida,
automatically
Georgia, Ole
means,
Miss, and Tennessee in the same year, Chris. Florida, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee all in
well,
the same year.
and not just that, but he got Arkansas last year, and they've lost 17 in a row in the league. Again, you win 6 games at Vanderbilt, you've done something. It's not the 9 that Franklin won, but it's not something to be dismissed either. But let's be honest too, they got the worst 2 teams in the West last year, and they've got an Arkansas team that just hadn't been able to slap its fanny with either hand since Chad Morris took over. You change one of those games, you give them a different year. Now, I guess you could say they caught a bad break the year before with catching Alabama, and that's true. But also, chronology is a big thing. People a lot of times think, well, they got hot, they finished well. And again, that's true. But that schedule also helped them out a lot down the stretch, and it gave people a much better taste in their mouth heading into this year.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. Chris, I just realized the time. Give me these final 2 questions. I got to bounce.
Okay, Mr. Vandy says, do you think Ken Seals could be a good SEC quarterback under the current coaching staff?
I think Ken Seals would be a good quarterback no matter who he plays for, no matter where he goes. I am absolutely enamored with that young man's game. Everywhere he went in the camps, he shined. He would win the MVPs. You watch him, man. He's a big kid. He can move. He sees the field well. He's got an arm. He's taken a program that wasn't doing much and turned them into a really good and competitive football team. I like everything about Ken Seals. I mean, I'll put it to you this way, Chris. At least under the Derek Mason era, at least in this one, and maybe even farther back than that, I think he is the most critical recruit that they hold on to in the Mason era. You can think I'm underselling it, and who knows, maybe I am. But I'll say this. From a stuff standpoint, I think he's the best quarterback recruit we've had in a long time.
Last one, I'll let you out of here. Ann Arbor Door says your ballpark estimate. Boy, this is a doozy. What percentage of offensive problems you think attribute to players, and what percentage is attributed to coaches? And please explain.
That's hard, Chris. For one, we haven't been able to stabilize the quarterback position. You know, injuries, graduation hit them hard. we're counting on guys piecing the offensive line together. I mean, personnel is a major part of this. There's no doubt about it. But that is also on the plate of the coaching staff as well. Player-wise, how many guys do we have that start for this football team that are consistent, performing SEC level guys? I mean, we can talk about the big three. Now, the lack of their two of their production I don't really think is about them, but I think all three of those guys are legit. I think David Cochran at times is a really good offensive line. He's not a perfect player by any stretch of the imagination. I think Dio defensively is an extremely gifted young man. I think there's only about 6 or 7 guys that I think consistently perform at an SEC level. I think the players are on the hook for some of this, but I think a lot of the problems that we see with this football team, the approach, sometimes the attitude, but maybe not the attitude. I'm going to back off on that one, but the approach, it leaves a lot to be desired, and I put that on the coaching staff. So if you make me put it into a percentage, I'm going to say, because of the fact that they're in charge of personnel, I'm going to say about 75% the coaches, 25% players. What about you?
I don't have any idea. I mean, ultimately, even if you blame some on the players, and I think there's some to blame. I mean, when you got your best receiver standing on the sidelines healthy and can play and he just doesn't, that's bad. I think that's on the player in this case in a lot of ways. I don't know the whole story, but come on.
You're saying that Elijah Lipscomb refused to go in?
All I'll say is Bruno Reagan wrote a good opinion piece on this on our site this week, and if you haven't read it, you need to. I will just leave it at that, okay?
Okay, I have not read it, but
well,
I really like
you
Bruno.
need to. Bruno is the rare guy that knows this, can write, and will tell it like it is. And he's not afraid of anybody. He's not afraid to say stuff. And I think that kind of leadership, they miss a lot this year.
Yeah, what are you going to do, beat them up?
Okay, let's say it's on the players. And then when your quarterback situation goes bad, it goes bad, okay? But they got a graduate transfer. They had all spring to make him better. They didn't. He might have even regressed a little bit. I don't know. You had a fourth-year junior in your system for 3 years. He had that stupid suspension last year. And I say stupid, not, again, on his part, but I just think it was a garbage suspension on behalf of the school. But those are guys that have been in your system. You have a chance to develop them. They know your system, and they can't run it. So at some point, that's on you in terms of talent evaluation or development. I mean, if you're an SEC school, of course, this isn't new to Vanderbilt. You had the 90s where they couldn't find a quarterback, period, most of the decade. But even if you blame it on the players, it's sort of blamed on the coaches because they're the ones that found and did or didn't develop these guys. So when everything stinks, when it just all rots, it is really hard to separate where responsibility is. You almost have to have a different year with different variables and then evaluate those guys under that. I don't know that that's a satisfactory answer, but the thing that I've said time and time again is when a thing goes horribly wrong, there were always explanations that transcend the X's and O's and the talent and all that. And I just think this is one of these years, and how that is sorted out in responsibility, I still don't know. I mean, I have an idea of what's going on. I think I know some of the root causes, but there are still parts to me that are a little bit of mystery of how exactly this happened. And everybody I talk to says the same thing. Like, I can't put my finger exactly, like, I think this is a factor, I think that's a factor, but I still think there's like an X factor in there that nobody has been able to put their finger on. They just...
Yeah. Right. And I'll just say this, no coach in the world should be comfortable in this situation in year number 6. No, none of them. And it should be self-imposed pressure. Forget the outside. Forget me. For anybody else, no coach should be comfortable with when your program is in this situation in year number 6. Sorry, nobody.
My friend, I know you need to run. I need to run. Tell people where they can find your show and tell them your Twitter handle, please.
Yeah, you can do that. You can find me on Twitter at CheapSeatsBass. It's at CheapSeatsBass. And you can find me at WNWS.com. And you can listen at 101.5 FM Monday through Friday on the Cheap Seats. One last note, I agree with you. I think that Bruno is great. I think he's got a future in the business. The experience is certainly there, and I wish him all the luck. And I'm definitely going to read his story, and I encourage him to keep on doing that.
Thank you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
He's Seabass. I'm Chris Lee. We appreciate you listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast.